Living with mental illness or mental health struggles doesn't just affect the person, it affects everyone around them. We're diving into that in today's Hear Me, See Me podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Bruner. Hear Me, See Me is a mental health awareness initiative of us at WIBW TV in Topeka, Kansas, spreading the message to all of you that it's okay to not be okay, and there is help and resources out there. Susan Reynolds is my guest today. She is involved with NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, and you help families through this, and it comes from a personal. These are actual classes, sessions you teach.
Yes, and the classes are taught by folks like myself who have lived experience with mental illness somewhere in their family or their history. So.
And you've been teaching these classes for how long?
This is the 26th year.
My goodness, quite some time. So your lived experience is involving your daughter.
My younger daughter started having some symptoms that we didn't understand. She had insomnia when she was 14, 15, and we tried talk therapy for a while, and then unexpectedly she had a psychotic break, which is pretty serious and very frightening, and that led us to hospitalization and finally a diagnosis. It took several months to determine that she had bipolar illness, which I knew nothing about at the time. So the journey began.
First of all, your daughter's name was what?
Becky.
Becky, okay.
Becky.
And you said Becky was 14 when...
She was 14 when she first had symptoms. She was 15 when she got her diagnosis, and she had just finished her freshman year of high school. And things just kind of fell apart that summer. I knew nothing about mental illness. I thought it was something that just the homeless had, so I knew nothing, and it took my breath away. It was like a punch in the gut. And
when the symptoms first started, though, I mean, exactly, most of us are not educated in mental. I don't even consider myself educated really in mental illness. So when you think of a 14-year-old, though, you do know about teenagers and you've heard stories about teenagers. So was your first reaction that this must be some kind of phase?
It will pass. I'm sure it will pass, and so that's a bit of a denial that everyone has at first. I think when the psychotic break happened, I knew it was more than teenage trauma.
Describe that. I think we hear the term psychotic break, but in reality, when you're living it, what happened?
Oh, well, she was delusional. She was thinking she was not my daughter. She thought I lied to her. She thought I adopted her, and so she also thought she was Princess Di for a while.
It's not so much that she thought you adopted her, because there's nothing wrong with that. That's a perfectly normal family story. But she thought she was these other people.
Right. Well, and even knowing that she thought her dad and I lied to her was like absurd. I mean, she looked exactly like me. She was my daughter. But anyway, we had to hospitalize her the night she got psychotic.
Did it happen just like that?
You know, we saw something coming. We didn't know what. And it was like, building in my insides. Yeah. I knew something's not right here. Something's really not right here. What's going to happen? But I had no idea what was coming. It was a shock, and we didn't know right away what it meant. So, I mean, I truly, inside, I was just broken. I was losing my daughter, and I didn't know what was coming next. Well, she stayed in the psychiatric wing of our Stormont Vale. At the time, they had a teenage adolescent unit, and after a week, they discharged her on this heavy medication that made her drool and shuffle, just really weird stuff. I didn't know what the heck was coming next. And we transferred her to a hospital in Kansas City that would treat eating disorders, I had had an eating disorder, anorexia, when I was in high school, and I thought I was seeing some symptoms that reminded me of my eating disorder. So I thought, well, that's where we'll begin, not knowing where that will end. Well, she was in that hospital maybe 2 weeks, and during that time, because of a doctor's mistake, he took her off of her medicine abruptly instead of tapering it down, and that resulted in her second psychotic break. And I learned later how serious psychosis in the brain could cause permanent damage, and she had hers close together, which was even harder on her brain. She was then transferred to KU Med psychiatric unit, and during her stay there, they determined she was bipolar. Making a diagnosis for a mental illness is not based on a biological assessment.
You can't just draw blood and
you
have
cannot,
the answer.
And an x-ray won't show you anything. So what they do is look at symptoms, and then they start trying medicine. If it works, that means A. If it doesn't work, let's try another medicine. Pretty soon it's B. But she responded well to lithium, which is used for bipolar disorder. So that was her diagnosis, bipolar, whatever the heck that is, you know. So from there, I started going to the library and checking out books that would help me understand what the heck am I dealing with here. And she was discharged at the end of that summer, so this is 3 months of hospitalization, and she came home and she was someone else, but she was not psychotic anymore. Kept her home with some home tutoring for a while, and then I was told by the tutor that she wondered if Becky was just kind of working the system, kind of wanting to stay home and not go back to school. And so with that encouragement and the therapist's encouragement, we put her back into this high school, her second year of high school, which was really painful to watch because her friends pretended she wasn't there. So she was pretty much ignored.
It was a rejection and isolation feelings on top of.
And not because they were being mean. They were just, they didn't know what to say to her or
because you said she was acting different.
She was, sure, she was someone else. She still smiled, but it was kind of a hopeful smile, but not a Becky smile. So we were in new territory here, and I need to probably keep it moving. So let's say she got into her sophomore year, and by then she was really wanting to fit in, and I don't blame her because she'd been very social before. So she started having a social life again and was introduced to pot. And then she fit in because they acted like they had mental illness now, people on pot, so she was just like them. And it just made her life more difficult, but at the time she thought it was a good thing. We didn't know it at the time. We had no idea she was doing that, and in the meantime she was seeing her therapist and her psychiatrist, and so we thought, well, okay, now what? Well, along her junior years, I got a phone call from school saying, we see that your daughter has been struggling and we have discovered that she's using drugs, so we need you to come pick her up. And that was like, oh no.
That's when you found out she'd been using marijuana and other substances. Okay.
So we got her into an inpatient treatment. Actually, at the time, it was at Menger's, which everyone assumes has all the answers, and now everything will be all better. But
that's not how the mind or mental illness works.
No, it kind of got through that semester, but that summer after her junior year, she said, Mom, you know, she cared about her grades. She'd always been a straight A student, and she was kind of struggling. The lithium messed with her brain in a way that she couldn't read a chapter, let alone tell me what it said. So, I mean, I was kind of tutoring her at home, reading to her. And she said at that summer, she said, Mom, I'm probably not going to graduate if I go back to the public high school, because it's too easy to leave and go use drugs and not stay in school. She says, I wonder if, and this is my child telling me what might work, and it's like, okay, what do you think might help you? And she said, could I go to the Catholic high school? She had several friends there that she knew from dance class, and she said, you have to stay in class there, you can't leave. So can I try that and see if it works? And I thought, heck yeah, we'll try anything.
What's interesting is that even with all these struggles, she still was communicating with you and
that point,
and trying to come up with solutions at
and
that point.
That was a good idea. It did get her through the year, and it did. Oh my gosh, being in school and not allowed to just leave any time of day, because if once you leave, you don't always come back, and she wasn't coming back. But now she was pretty much there, and there was structure,
right,
which she needed. There was good structure. Scholastically, it wasn't as good as the public. So, well, it wasn't, academically it was okay, but not as good as she had been getting. But at that point, that's what she needed. So she made it. She struggled, but she made it through her senior year by the skin of her teeth, and she graduated, which was a huge accomplishment. At that point, we were so grateful and so proud of her. So she got through that, and then free time in her hand and la la la. She was using drugs that summer again, and so things were ugly. You know, we didn't know what was going to happen next. She thought she was ready to go to college, and I knew she wasn't, but we thought, let's try. We don't know until we try. So she went through Rush even, which was scary for her big sister, but she was Miss Social, and she was having a good old time. And she got in a sorority, and she started KU, and about November, she came home and she says, I need to go to rehab for drugs. And I said, what? She says, well, I haven't been going to class, and the sorority kicked me out because I'm not being very nice to people. So she was symptomatic again, and we had to come up with a plan. And with the help of her therapist, we decided she could do a residential rehab in Colorado. So she went to her first rehab, first of 3. So now we're in drug and alcohol rehab, as well as trying to figure out a mental illness.
Bipolar.
Yeah. So they call that a dual diagnosis, which at the time, the provider, the system didn't quite know how to make it work. And so it wasn't working, because they would work on just her addiction, but not her bipolar illness. And so it wasn't successful for several times. So a couple years went by with different rehabs.
And this is all back in the late 90s, early 2000s?
Yep.
Okay.
She graduated high school in 97, did the rehabs off and on until about 2000. So, and then she got tired of being on medication, because it has side effects. She had gained, I want to say, 60 pounds because of the medication. And so she decided, nope, not doing that. Tired of being a guinea pig and tired of being fat. So she went off her medication and got really, really scary. That next year, actually 2001, she was living with her sister in Kansas City, and her sister came back to Topeka to get into nursing school. And so Becky was by herself, just going downhill. And the next thing we find out is that she is driven to California without anything except the clothes on her back and her car and a little bit of money that she could access, not much, but it got her all the way to California. And we found out when we were there on 9/11, we found that out. We were on vacation and found out that New York City was being attacked by who knows who, and our daughter had run away and was in San Diego. And so our world was like shattered in every direction. And we couldn't fly home because they wouldn't allow any flights for quite a while. So we rented a car. Well, we made contact with Becky first. She was in San Diego. And we drove down there and made contact with her. And she was not having it. She didn't trust us because she was off her medication, and she wasn't quite psychotic, but she wasn't thinking clearly at the time. So she said, well, I want to stay here. I don't want to go home with you guys. I want to stay here. And so with the 9/11 crisis and our other daughter being home alone in Topeka, scared to death that,
right, what was happening in the mansion.
Am I going to get bombed? Am I going to die, Mom? Are you home?
So
You're coming home? We did. We came home.
To Becky?
She got into a cult. It's like, did someone write this book? Can we get to a happy ending soon? It's really frightening. She got into a cult that said they could help her, and so we lost communication for, let's say, September, October, November. The day after Christmas, we got a letter from her. We didn't know if she was alive during that time. I'm getting dry here. I can hardly talk.
You're okay.
We got a letter from her saying, I've been in this place in, she said, I think it's Yucaipa, California, wherever that is. We didn't know. She says, these nice people are helping me, and she was being monitored. Someone was right beside her listening to what she said, and so then she started talking like she'd been brainwashed, saying things that wasn't Becky, but things that wanted to reassure Mom that she was okay. And it was like, hey, Becky, can I talk to whoever's there? Let me talk to the lady or the man who's in the room with you. And so made contact with whoever that person was. And I could tell by the robotic responses that this was someone I didn't trust.
Right.
Didn't know what the heck was going on.
Were you able to get her out?
Yes and no. In March, we got permission from them, the people who were taking care of her. We could visit with her, and she had permission to leave with us for a few nights. She could stay with us wherever we were staying. So we made contact in March, and we tried to gain her trust. We only had a couple days and a couple of nights, and she didn't really know whether she couldn't trust us because she was
under someone's control.
Yeah, under someone's control, but yet she missed us. She hadn't been with us for a while, so she kind of wanted to go home with. She was undecisive, and then it came time we had. My husband was a dentist, had to get back to work. My other daughter was with us. She was in nursing school, had to get back, and it was like, well, Becky, we need to get your decision because we really want you to come home with us. And at the last minute, she backed out. She wouldn't come home with us. So my husband and other daughter flew home, and I decided to stay there because I couldn't bear to leave her again. This time I was going to stay there and work with her and try to get her trust back so that she'd come home, because she didn't know anyone in California, and the people she was with, I knew were not going to help her at all.
So what eventually happened?
Eventually, after staying another few weeks in California, she changed her mind and decided to come home. So I flew her home in April, and she was thrilled to be home again. Things were looking hopeful. I had promised at that point I wouldn't call 911 like I had to several times, because when she gets to a certain point in the illness, she's dangerous to herself and maybe to me or my other daughter and husband. So I'd had to call 911 before. This time I said, Becky, I know that's upsetting to you. I promise I won't do that, okay? Just come home and let us help you. We love you. People out here don't even know you. How can they help you if they don't even know you? Come home and we'll work with you and not push, okay? So she flew home with me, told the stewardess that I was the devil, and so the stewardess let her sit back in the back with the stewardess, and I sat in my seat, and she got off the plane with me. Thank goodness Mike was there, and she ran to get her dad's hug, and we made it home. However, the resulting, let's see, that was April, she started getting really depressed, and she refused to take medication, and I had promised not to push, so I knew better. I couldn't push, but she was talking to her therapist. Her therapist came to make home visits because Becky was getting really bad. And one day in June, I went to work. Her dad went to work. Her sister went to nursing school classes. And while we were gone, she committed suicide. Which we had never thought she would do because she had experienced a good friend's mom commit suicide, and at that time she said, that's not how I want to go out, I'll never do that. And so I took her word. I didn't think she would do that, but she was so sick, the depression had taken away any shred of hope that she had had. And now after all these years, this was 2002, she wasn't able to think clearly, and her brain was saying, it'll be better when you're gone. This is too hard. So
she had a lot of support from you, from therapists, from health care, even from friends, family who were able to stick around. But where was the support for you and your husband and your daughter, your other daughter?
Wow. I had started going to a class called Family to Family. In fact, Mike went with me a few times too. And it kind of gave me some confidence in myself, and it gave me information about her illness that helped tremendously.
But this was how long into the journey? Was it a few years before you were able to find this group?
It was. The first 5 years of her illness, I really had nothing to grab hold of. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but I was getting depressed. Didn't know what depression felt like, but at a certain point, after getting therapy and doing everything I knew to stay healthy, because I had a daughter that needed me, I could see that I was getting sick. I needed help of some other kind. And so I asked the therapist what to do. I said, do I need medication? And she said, maybe. But she said, I'm not qualified to prescribe, so you need to see somebody. And she gave me a name. And so I saw somebody and started on antidepressants. The first one didn't work, but the second one did. And it was like a gift from heaven, because the world of depression is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like there are no emotions, there is no color, there's no sunshine, there's no anything. Everything's just blah. And
then you also found Family to Family. And that is where you continue to pay it forward today. So we're going to get into Family to Family and the next part of Susan's journey in just a second. back here on the Hear Me, See Me podcast with Susan Reynolds. And Susan, you just shared the story of your daughter's journey through what first seemed like a teenage phase, then a diagnosis of bipolar, and then the loss from a death by suicide. But I was interested in the support you and your family received. And you just said that you started, and this is how I met you. You came to talk about these family-to-family sessions that you were helping to teach, and it came from this personal experience. What is family-to-family?
It's a course that's taught by family to other families who are experiencing mental illness in a close way. Like, they can be parents, they can be spouses, they can be children with their parent who has a mental illness. They can be just a loved one that lives with someone in their family that needs their one-on-one support. So it's information that we provide that no one else does.
Well, you'd said that it was about 5 years where you kind of all felt like you were just kind of floating, not knowing what to do, what this experience was like, not even really understanding what it was your daughter was going through with bipolar and then leading to depression yourself. So this is several weeks, right? Did you say 6 or 8 weeks?
You know, when I took it, it was a 12-week course, and now it's an 8-week course.
And you go through different topics. What are some of those topics that, man, stuff that you thought at the time, I wish someone would have told me this?
Oh my, yes. We learn about symptoms of illnesses, and we learn about the major serious illnesses such as depression, bipolar illness, schizophrenia, anxiety disorder. We touch on OCD, but with less information so far than the other illnesses. We give training in skills. We learn how to communicate in a way that's better understood by a loved one instead of the way we did. Without information, a parent usually preaches. They talk too much instead of listen. We learn to listen more and talk less. Okay.
How enlightening was it for you to, first of all, understand the illness?
Oh.
How much does that help a loved one?
Oh my goodness. It's not like you change immediately. In fact, it took years to really take that knowledge and use it in a way that was the most helpful for my daughter. But just having knowledge gives you the permission to breathe and maybe do something you want to do for yourself along the way.
Maybe not feel guilty, like you were the cause and to blame for all this?
Oh my gosh, it's amazing how many people think that it's their fault. And it's a biological illness, and you can't cause cancer. What makes you think you can cause a brain disorder? So no, it's no one's fault, and that's a big relief for a lot of folks.
So you give them that knowledge to cross that hurdle, some skills to communicate. What else?
Problem solving. We learn how to not get overburdened with a problem pileup, because there's more than one problem at a time that happen. There's a whole bunch of things going on, and let's say you're married and you have a couple other children, and everyone has their own idea of what you should be doing to help your bipolar daughter. Well, you can't work on everything at once. And so we help people to sort through the problems and get the one that's the most important, the one that might be dangerous to someone else, work on that one first, and the others can be worked on later, put them aside. And it stick with one at a time. And that seems to help people manage the illness. We can't fix it. You know, that's the other thing we learned as parents. You can't fix it. Don't even think about fixing it. But you can manage, and you can learn to survive the symptoms and know that the symptoms are not the person. Becky's behavior was horrible during high school, and then college. It was humiliating to me as a parent. I mean, I was raised in a real religious family. In fact, my dad was a minister. You don't do drugs. You don't have sex before marriage. You don't have sex when you're 16. Well, when you're manic, like bipolar people are, you think everyone wants to have sex with you, and so you do. And so those are all the things that parents have to learn to love their daughter, son, or whoever, because under the layers of symptoms, they're still there. They want to come out, but they're not in control of their symptoms. And so not blaming yourself for those symptoms and not blaming your loved one for the symptoms, they're caused by the illness. The brain's not well. The brain can't be controlled by telling it to stop doing that. So those are some of the things that gradually sink in, not right away, but gradually the person who's trying to live with this loved one who's symptomatically is coping in a way that helps them to listen more.
Mm-hmm. Are there other practical things that are covered in the class, like how to access care, how to access resources, things that most people, until you're in the world and need it, I mean, you're not making phone calls just in case.
I wish I could be positive about that, but I think it's gotten worse than it was back when I first started with Becky. Sorry to say that services are harder to access. Services that are successful are harder to access. We don't have enough psychiatrists. We don't have enough counselors. I mean, where do you find them? Look in the phone book, if people use phone books anymore. I mean, how do you find them? I don't know. They're hiding out somewhere.
So it's like we've built this awareness, we've built people now willing to ask for help, but where are the people who can help them? We have this demand now, so that's certainly something to address at many, many levels outside of that. When you think about, did you decide to become a teacher for this class right away? Or was there?
I did.
You did?
I
did. You knew right away that this is what you needed to share with other people?
It needed to be out there, needed to be available, and as I got into it, I realized it was helping me too. As it was empowering me to see that somebody was learning, and I was helping them. And that sounds cheesy, but it's that little straw I need to grasp a hold of. I need something other than the trauma at home to deal with, and that was what I reached out to do. And we were trained to do it for 2 years. But there aren't that many teachers that take over to do it. And in the meantime, Becky died, and I found out that doing it was healing for me.
I was going to say, even though, it would be great if we could sit here and say that your story had a happy ending and that Becky had found the appropriate medication, that Becky was still here with us. Even though that's not how the story ended, what do you still want people to learn from what your family went through and from Becky's life? Because Becky lived.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Well, I want them to not be afraid to reach out for help, not be afraid to talk about this illness with friends they trust, with their pastor, with their neighbor they trust. I want them to know that with knowledge they can do this, with knowledge and hopefully they have faith in God, and hopefully they have others in the family who want to listen and learn because they need family support, and they can do this. They can do this.
And for the greater public as well, because, it could be easy for a family to isolate themselves because, like you said, you were embarrassed. Even though you then learned that this wasn't your fault and you really shouldn't be embarrassed about it. There was nothing anyone could have done to prevent it. It's not,
Exactly.
Not like you set up a cliff and let her fall off it.
Right.
That's not what happened. So what about for the general public? What do we all need to understand?
Don't be judgmental. You don't know until you walk in someone's shoes what they're living, and it's an illness that treatment will help. There's no easy answer. It takes years. It's a journey, but it can be done. You can do this and have a life in addition to the trauma that you're living. You can also have some fun in your life, and how to take care of yourself is pretty darn important, and people don't think about that. So that's part of the class too. We work on that.
How should we remember Becky?
Oh gosh. Well, when she was healthy, she could light up a room. She was full of smiles and energy and humor. Her hope was, when she was healthy, she was hoping that someday she could be maybe a therapist or something along the line of mental health to help others. She was really good at helping solve other people's problems. They're easier than your own. But I could see her doing it too. That was something that I looked forward to. She could have been a great mom because she loved children, but
You remember the happy times?
try to. Yeah, for a while I couldn't, but absolutely, that's the best parts. Remember the good times, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we'll remember Becky's smile, especially when you smiled, because you said she looked just like you.
Oh, it's crazy.
If anybody wants to reach out to resources, reach out to your local NAMI chapter. We have NAMI Kansas, we have NAMI Topeka, or just Google NAMI, because that's where you'll find where these family-to-family type classes might be offered in your area, or talk to your own therapist or local behavioral health organization and provider, because they have the resources to connect you as well. You have to ask. I think that, that's one of the important things here is you have to ask.
You have to be brave enough. It takes courage to open that door to other people, but it's worth it.
Well, Susan, we are grateful for the courage that you have in sharing your story and for continuing to help other people through what can be a difficult time, because it's not just the person. It wasn't just Becky. It was all of you around her who lived with it. So we appreciate you and what you continue to do, what NAMI and Family to Family are doing. We do have a list of resources on WIBW.com/HearMeSeeMe. Of course, if you are in crisis or you have a loved one who's in crisis and you don't know what to do, that 988 hotline is there for you as well, because they can help you get connected with these resources. We appreciate you, Susan, because for yourself and any other family or person who's living and struggling, we hear you, we see you.